Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this Monday edition of Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I am Pastor Mark Baze of Blue, Oklahoma. And we had a good Sunday at the church. It was a good time. I do want to apologize. We are, for some reason, having some streaming issues with the main Sunday service. It did cut off early. I think you got to watch a decent chunk of the sermon, but I apologize for that. We're working on resolving it. I've been in contact with Nathan. You know how technology goes. Some days it works good, some days it doesn't. And we're going to continue to make sure that we have everything going well. But it is what it is. Please be long-suffering. Please be patient. The good news is that we did have a successful Sunday school stream. And I'm really excited for that. We are starting a brand new series which is called Identifying the Bible, a textual and historical study. This is going to be a long study. It just is. I don't really even know how to parse this out. I don't know how to I guess, plan it, because I'm going to be studying it all in real time, doing something that the seminary never takes the time to teach us. And that's going to be, how can we know which book is the faithful and most accurate copy of God's Word? And how close can we be to 100%, knowing that this is exactly what the Word of God is? And so it's going to be a good time. I'm excited about it. I hope that you are as well. We have our first Sunday school installment. It's more just an introduction explaining why we needed to have this study. That's session number 1, the need for this study. And so I really did try to spend my time making the case for why it is so important. So hopefully you got to check that out. And we are continuing to try to get, once again, those Sunday morning sermon issues all ironed out as well. Now, we have had a very crazy weekend, just really almost the entire world has. The United States, as well as, working with the IDF, or I don't know, is the IDF like specifically like the army for Israel? I don't know, the Israeli Air Force. Anyways, there was a joint attack on Iran, and you all know this. And it was under it was under the motive of Iran has been a longtime enemy of the United States. Iran has been for a long time making threats against the United States, as well as continue to pursue a nuclear program. Also, Iran has been killing thousands, tens of thousands of its citizens, and the regime that is in charge is just an evil regime. So therefore, Trump decided to give the order to begin bombing Iran. And the leader, the Ayatollah, he has been killed, as well as a number of top leaders, seeing anywhere from the top 10 to top 40. You're seeing all sorts of different statistics and information that's being released right now. And how much of it do we know for certain? It's hard to tell. Iran has responded in a really interesting way by attacking a lot of surrounding countries. Now, maybe it's the case that a lot of these surrounding countries have betrayed Iran in some way. For example, Iran has bombed Saudi Arabia. They have bombed Dubai. Really interesting moves there. You assume, I guess, they think there's a coordinated effort between all these countries with the United States. Now, we have had service members killed due to these counterattacks from Iran. So this is a big deal. We have not only engaging in the bombing of a country is one thing, but when it results in American servicemen being killed in action, losing their lives, this is a very serious thing. So we're going to spend some time today talking about it. Now, why do you sit here and listen to my thoughts and my opinion on these things. It's not that I am a political expert, by no means. There's so much I don't know, and it's really easy to tell that I don't know a whole lot when you hear me talking. I've really decided in my life to be committed to, if I can be an expert in something, I'm pursuing it. I'm not telling you I'm there, but I'm pursuing an expert level knowledge of the Bible. So that's my pursuit. Therefore, I'm going to have to sacrifice somewhere. It doesn't. So that means that I'm not a political expert by any means. I'm probably more aware than the average 30-year-old just because I do pay attention, but that doesn't mean I'm an expert. I'm also not an expert on history. I'm not an expert on the dynamics of the Middle Eastern geopolitical reality. And so what you're getting when you do listen to me comment on these things are the questions I have as someone who believes in biblical values, but not just biblical values, but also a rightly divided view of the world, right? The idea that we live in this mystery age, this unique dispensation, has significant ramifications for how we view the dynamics of politics and everything else. One of the things about Michael Knowles, I comment about him a lot because I think he's great in so many ways, but he does bring such a Catholic worldview, and so his mentality of the United States being a global empire he has no issue with, because that's kind of the sentiments of Catholicism, right? Is there needs to be this Christian empire that exercises the imperial authority on the earth. And the problem with that is I believe that doesn't align with the actual theological reality of the age we live in, and we can't establish a Christian kingdom upon the earth and it actually succeed and be lasting. We would be much better off rejecting the idea of massive government power, massive government authority, because power is just so easily corruptible. And the idea that is brought in with those, whether it is Catholic or those of just simply a post-millennialist type mentality, maybe even an all-millennialist, is the idea that no, Christians can establish the kingdom here on earth. We can build the kingdom right now. That's the mentality that they have. And they think the answer to that is giving a government a lot of power and authority, assuming that Christian government is just that, Christian. Now, I may be generalizing a little bit. Granted, there are some post-millennialists and some amillennialists who would reject that idea, but I do see a number of people who don't have a problem with an imperial United States, assuming that imperial United States is Christian. So I hear a lot of those political commentators. I hear other political commentators as well, such as, let's talk about Tucker Carlson, who I think due to a lot of doctrine, a lot of theology, has taken on, let's just call a spade, a very anti-Jewish mentality. Tucker Carlson would probably deny that. He would probably say that he's not anti-Jewish, he's just anti the regime that is Israel. But we've heard him say enough things that you realize that there is this undercurrent of replacement theology, that we are now Israel, we are the fulfillment of the promises to Abraham. Tucker Carlson does kind of like to scoff at, every time, whether it's Ted Cruz or Mike Huckabee, they make an appeal to Genesis 12 and that there was a very special covenant that God made with Abraham and his seed. And then through some allegorizing of Scripture, Galatians chapter 3, I think taken beyond the scope of what it's saying, they argue that, well, there's nothing to be said for any future for the Jewish people, and now we, Christians, are the fulfillment of all of that. And So it just has some really significant ramifications. So what I'm trying to do, and we're going to get into discussing this matter, and I just want to take a moment just to let you know why it is that I'm trying to speak on these issues, because there's just not hardly anybody with a rightly dividing worldview, a rightly dividing theological view that is approaching these issues of politics and speaking on them. So I don't speak as an expert. I'm just trying to let you see my thought process working through these issues, working through these matters. So we have attacked Iran. Are we justified? I would love to hear your thoughts, especially those of an older generation. Those who remember, those who may even have memory of what Iran was like prior to the fall of the Shah, right? The regime change that the United States allowed to take place under Jimmy Carter. And American soldiers killed by Iran. Americans being held hostage by Iran. Are the actions of Iran in the past, and currently what they're doing today, we know that Iran is the biggest funder of terrorism in the Middle East. Was it the justified thing to do in going ahead and doing this preemptive attack? I am wanting to be supportive of our president. I would like to be able to support whoever president is in office, right? I mean, that's just the sense of, yeah, we're an American, or we're Americans, and we want to have a sense of loyalty to country. So what I really want Trump to do well is if he's going to mobilize the military and carry out attacks for the sake of political optics, because I don't want Democrats to win the midterms. I don't want the Democrats to win the White House. For Trump's success as president, anytime a major decision like this is made, especially now that we have lost American lives in this conflict, we need him to communicate very clearly, and people understand why he did this. Now, Trump, I think many would say, if I'm playing the role of the Trump apologist, I think a good number would say, well, Trump has done this. He has said many, many times that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. The devil's advocates of that is, well, didn't we just bomb Iran last year, and that was supposed to set them back, years at the least on developing a nuclear weapon? So why have we turned right around and gotten involved with them again, and now in a much more significant way? Counter to that, once again, you're hearing me work through this, so I'm trying to have this inner conversation with myself. The counter to that is we were trying to have negotiations with Iran concerning their efforts in pursuit of nuclear power, which, if they're doing nuclear power, why are they needing to enrich uranium to the degree that they're enriching it? Because the only reason you do that is for nuclear weapons. And so if that's the justification, I just really hope that Trump has done a good job communicating that to the American people. How dangerous it would be for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Trump has been consistent they can't have it, but why? Are we absolutely confident that if Iran was able to get its hands on a nuclear weapon, that it would use it? I think that the next thing that you need to do is give very good justification for why there is reason to believe that the United States can actually effectuate a regime change in Iran. People do not have fond memories of Iraq. People don't have fond memories of Vietnam. The efforts for the United States to intervene in a significant way to affect political outcomes. Now, we're not saying that it's not impossible for such a thing to be justified. If there is an evil political power in place, they are murdering people. We have good reason to believe that their evil will find its way here. Then I'm willing to have the conversation on why that would be just war, right? And I know there are some who are absolute isolationists and say, well, it doesn't matter if there's a country that is very wicked and evil, but if they're another country, then you leave them alone. If they're leaving you alone, you leave them alone and go about your business. That's where the big debate of the isolationists and those who believe that for the United States to truly be prosperous, we must play the role of the world's police. That's kind of a good way to boil it down. So the isolationist, you're already, I just don't think that there was anything that Trump could do that would please any isolationist at all. Okay? So everybody who's on the conservative side, which isolationism is kind of a more conservative position nowadays. Some of that, interesting how that shifted. It seems like a lot of the, anti-war hippies, used to be on the left, and now you've got the ones who are super critical, right, of any conflict. Think about, Thomas Massey and so on. There's nothing Trump that was going to be able to do to convince the isolationists that there was any good reason to attack Iran. So what he has to do is he has to give good, just reason for why he thinks that a successful regime change can be done now in Iran. Why now? Why can't it be accomplished now? Granted, there's many people, I'm sure Dr. White, if he was listening, maybe he is right now, I don't know, I'm sure he could give a lot of history on it. I know that he's very well read on it and knows the dynamics of it. So why now in 2026? I think another important question to ask, especially if you're a conservative and you want to see if you really want to see Trump have success, it's hard to see how this is going to help him and Republicans win the midterms. Getting the United States involved in any foreign conflict, Americans just don't like it. That's not the climate. Now, I don't know if there's ever been a time in history where America was excited about the possibility of war. That doesn't make much sense, right? War is something you do if you have to. My thoughts here is there's not going to be anything about this that's going to help Trump with the midterms. Dare I say, even if things go really well. Best case scenario, well, let's just describe best case scenario. This thing is done within the next few days. There is a changing of power in Iran, whether that's the prince, he claims power. There's some other government in place that replaces the leaders of Iran, and Iran becomes an American ally, right? If that happened, best case scenario, just being honest from what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, even if that is the case, that's what happens and we don't lose any other American lives. And I certainly hope that's the case. I don't know that that Trump will be able to put that on his resume and the Republicans can put that on their resume, that it's going to go a long ways to help them. I'm not saying it shouldn't. The possibility of taking a former adversary, and making them an ally by being able to effectuate a regime change, a regime change should be somewhat impressive and be considered a great benefit. I just don't know if the politics are there right now, if the people, the society in America is for that. The people are fickle. Remember how fed up everybody was with Joe Biden and how uninterested they were in Kamala Harris? And now they're already angry with the Republicans. Americans are a very tricky people to please. It's just the dynamics of it. It's how it is. So I don't see anything about the war helping Trump's re-election bid, at least for Republicans, right? Because I don't think he's running for a third term in the midterms. So that does leave us an interesting question then. If we're assuming that Trump has calculated this, now maybe he believes it will help him in the midterms. I don't really see how. And if there were advisors telling him that this was going to help him in the midterms, I would question the knowledge of those advisors, those who were giving him this encouragement and recommendation. But if Trump, if he has a finger on the pulse, he must have known that there is really nothing about this that is going to help him and the Republicans in the midterms. So there's two different options. Option number one, either he's doing this for a very selfish reason, helping a very special interest group. And of course, this is where a lot of people would begin bringing in their speculations. So, hey, Trump is doing this on behalf of Israel, right? Because Israel and Iran are big enemies, and so this is a favor for Netanyahu. I mean, there's all sorts of people who are in that camp and being very speculative about Israel getting America dragged into another war, right? That's their opinion. Has Israel dragged us into war before? And then you'll have all these different people commenting about Iraq and so on. The other option is that Trump is doing this because he believes it's the right thing. He believes that Iran is a genuine threat, or he believes that Iran has disrespected the United States enough that in order for the United States to maintain dominance and potentially gain some kind of strategic advantage with overthrowing the regime, turning Iran potentially into an ally, that this is a net positive for the United States, and therefore his calculation is, this may not help me in the midterms, but I have an opportunity right now to do something good for America, do something to significantly strengthen America, something that will maybe significantly weaken America's adversaries, and I'm going to take it no matter the political cost. I know we always attribute the most negative take. It's very easy for people, especially those who are wanting to be critics of Trump, to say he would never do something so noble. Now, you can do something noble and still be wrong. You can be misguided in your noble efforts. So I'm not even telling you that Trump is right here. We're just speaking in the different possibilities, the motives, the reasons why he did this. But I would just say, don't be so quick to always assume the worst about someone. You don't do that in life, right? Always assuming the absolute worst. And that kind of would make you a miserable person to be around if you assume everybody's trying to cheat you, everybody's trying to, be out to get you. People are only out for themselves. I'm not saying there aren't people like that, but that's not really how you can live life. That'll make you a very miserable person. So I would just be willing to entertain for a second that maybe Trump is not doing this because he's a stooge or a puppet of somebody else, or he's doing this for purely selfish reasons, but he genuinely thinks this is the right thing to do. I think if people had that mentality of being willing to consider that Trump believes this is the right thing. For example, there are some politicians who are true believers, right? It's kind of hard to have ire towards somebody like a Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders is just honest that he's a communist, right? I think that Bernie Sanders genuinely believes that it's the proper thing to do. Now, he's absolutely wrong, and I never want to see Bernie Sanders ever win another election, and we don't need people like Bernie Sanders in Congress who are promoting communist ideas. But he's just an old communist. You know who he is, right? That's his conviction about the world. Somebody like a Joe Biden has shown too many times that he has no convictions. He blows whichever direction the wind is going. And so I don't have respect for people like him. There's other politicians who, could be on the right side of the aisle that I don't have a lot of respect for. They flip-flop their positions all the time depending upon what's advantageous. I've never known Trump to be really a flip-flopper, okay? He will change his approach on some things, and he may change his position on some things if it's not core to his principles, right? On abortion, Trump is probably not the most pro-life person in the world. Actually, I know he's not, but he does know that's what the base wants, and I think he has a genuine baseline idea. Yeah, we shouldn't be aborting babies in the third term. Like, that's just wrong and evil, right? But if he's having to play to a particular moment, he's not going to come out and just say outright banning all abortions that are, it doesn't matter how early it is. It could be 3 weeks. Ban the pill. Like, he's not going to take that position because he knows that's not the politically popular position. So there's some things Trump may vary on, but when it comes to some core things, Trump has always been talking about bombing Iran. So today, as you're hearing all of the political commentary, hearing all of the discussion on it, there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to assume the worst about Trump's motives. I'm saying that you can always have a skeptical mindset, right? Don't just believe everything you're told. But it's not healthy for you as a person, I would say, just to assume everybody's trying to cheat you and everybody is lying and scheming. I'm willing to say two things can be true at the same time. Trump can believe what he's doing is right, and at the same time, that doesn't mean that what he has done in this particular moment is right. I'm not going to come to a conclusion today on whether or not the United States should have gotten involved and bombed Iran. There are some people who are absolutely for it. They're celebrating. They're ecstatic. They're saying, yes, we should have done this a long time ago. That's their position. That's their conviction. There's some people also that are saying this is horrible and terrible and evil and unjustified, and the United States is engaging in just war. Trump has betrayed us. To this group that's over here that's very excited, I'm going to say, I don't know yet. Time will tell. Maybe this was good. Maybe this wasn't. If we're out of Iran by, the 1st of April, and it's done and it's over, and maybe there has been a successful regime change, then sure, okay, that worked out, I guess. It didn't. I still don't think that's going to help Trump in the midterms. It's not going to help Republicans in the midterms, but that's a good scenario. If we're in June and we're still bombing Iran, Trump did allow this to turn into another Iraq. He did basically do what George Bush did, and that's just George W. Bush, and that's just not going to go over well with American people. We don't want endless war. But once again, this group over here that just says Trump has betrayed us, he lied to us, that's just not faithful. Trump has always said no stupid wars, right? But you heard it that way. You heard it as, we're not going to have any more war, no more stupid wars. That's never been his position. His position has always been no more stupid wars. It's been an emphasis on the needless wars. Trump has always said, he's always warned Iran that he would bomb them. He's always said they can't have a nuclear weapon. He's always been clear about it. Iran has always been clear they've hated America. So to claim absolute justification on both sides, I don't know that that's something that you can just easily do. I know that Iran has murdered many of its own people. We know that is true, okay? China's also murdered a lot of Uyghur Muslims. They have. China's murdered a lot of people. We're not marching into China, right? So if you're going to say, well, we're justified because they're killing thousands of their own people, there's a lot of countries that are doing that. And yet we haven't marched into them. And so you're backing yourself into an ideological and political corner you must be really careful about. So what I want to do is I want to hear some of your comments now. I've asked you to give me your opinion as I've reflected on this. Do you agree that this is not helping Trump politically? I just don't see how it can, even if things go really well. So let's see here. Paul says, I defiantly thought it was a good sermon. Defiantly. I wonder what you mean by defiantly. Because I thought maybe you meant definitely, but it does say defiantly. Paul says, because most of us here are all at the same level of thought and understanding. Oh, and Rick wants clarification. Yeah, he caught it too. Why are you defiant? It was a good sermon. And Paul says, Mark's inner reflection on being more intimate with praying to God. Of course, I'm paraphrasing with his example of Paul kneeling when giving a simple, normal prayer. So defiantly in the sense that, yeah, I don't know either, Paul, but I'm glad you thought it was a good sermon, though, even though you defiantly thought it. Mary says, I was just graduating from college in 1979. No, you weren't. If you were even born yet, Mary, I don't know if I believe that. I was just graduating from college in 1979 when the Shah was defeated and the Ayatollah took over Iran. And I know that was a horrible thing. Iran went from a modern country, which modern doesn't always mean better in some ways, but people were not being murdered. Women were not being forced to be covered in a, shawl or whatever those things, a burqa, right? Burqa. I don't know all the terminology there. But being forced to wear that and then forcing fundamentalist Islam upon the people. I know it was a terrible thing for them. Ken says Trump could try the whole geopolitical reason behind this action, but everyday Americans in the press would not get it. Yeah, I don't think that it's going to sell. And it's not because he's wrong. Once again, you can do something that is, based upon the knowledge that he may have, was absolutely justified. And maybe it was the case of, we can do this now, we can weaken Iran. I'm going to fight it. It's not Iraq, it's Iraq. It's not Iran, it's Iran. So, I don't know, maybe he thought, I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off, I'm going to take the hit, but we're going to take out the regime in Iran, and we're actually going to establish some real lasting peace here. Maybe that's possible. I don't know. The Middle East has been a mess for a long, long time. Now, Ken does that. I believe it's all about boxing in China. That's the conversation that some people aren't willing to have right now, or not interested in having. The fact that, Iran, and I don't know the statistics here, the data on it, but I do know that Iran provides a lot of oil to China, a lot. So, yeah, maybe Trump is thinking about that. That's absolutely something to be going on. Rick, Rick's responding to Paul there in their discussion on him defiantly liking the sermon. Ken says it's a real-life version of a Stratego, and maybe so. Once again, people who I'm trying to just put all this together here. People will say, "Oh, the United States or the government is not being honest about Epstein. They're not telling us the whole story." Yeah, probably not, right? The government probably isn't telling you the whole story. And then they say, "Oh, so we just bombed Iran because they supposedly had nuclear weapons and we want a regime change." Like, maybe there's more behind the scenes, things that you're not being told, okay? So who knows what the strategy could be. And if it is a strategy against China, yeah, maybe Trump doesn't want to advertise that they are strategizing and trying to box in China in some way. Maybe there's some more layers to this deal. The American public doesn't always know the whole story. Probably very rarely does the American public know the whole story. I'm not saying that's a good thing, I'm just saying it's the way it is. And truth be told, we've kind of done it to ourselves because we got a bunch of traitors in America, just to be brutally honest. And it's a good thing that Ilhan Omar wasn't told anything about this. Now, granted, she claimed that she hated the Ayatollah, I guess. She made a statement on X about that. But there would be some people, though, that would be warning Iran, right? That, hey, the attack's coming, because they're not pro-American. They're traitors to the American government. Paul says, I have moments when I feel cynical of people. I can be that way sometimes. I will admit it, I can be that way towards preachers, because I am one, right? And I hear, whether it's a Calvinist preacher or just some evangelical, and I assume the worst, in a lot of ways. And shame on me for doing that, because these are not all people who are trying to trick and deceive. They're tricked themselves, right? They have been deceived themselves. I can be cynical. Don't get angry with me, because you are all the exception, okay? You are all a lot of fine people, but I can be cynical towards the boomers, right? Because they use fake butter, and they have bought into big government in a lot of ways. Even the boomers that claim to be more libertarian, like they're okay with, just letting the federal government have these massive programs, like whether it's Medicare and once again, please don't shoot the messenger here, but Social Security is a scam. It's not sustainable. I don't know that I'm going to ever see a cent of Social Security when I get older. It's not a sustainable thing, right? So there's some of those sentiments that, and granted, I'm not blaming you, because you paid into it, right? Part of your salary came out into Social Security so that you could have it. It's just, I can be cynical towards the boomer generation in a lot of ways. So I think, oh my goodness, we don't see eye to eye on anything, and your generation quit going to church, and or at least if you stayed in church, you turned to evangelicalism or whatever. So it's very difficult to not fight cynicism, right? So always check it. You'll cut yourself off at the knees if you just always assume the worst in people, and you'll turn yourself into kind of a miserable person in a lot of ways. But there's an old, line from like some, I don't know if it's a military commander or whatever, but it's something like, be kind and polite, and also have a plan to, kill anybody in the room. It's the idea that I'm going to treat you with respect. I'm going to be, pleasant towards you. But also, I'm going to be ready. All right, I'm not going to let myself be caught off guard if you try to trick me or betray me. It's kind of the sentiment there. Maybe that works in life to some degree. Paul says not to beat a dead horse, if I've said it before, but all this stuff only strengthens my faith and trust in God. Talking about just all the conflict going on in the world right now. The world's a mess, right? The world's a mess, and it gives you a greater appreciation for God. When you're a kid, the world is fascinating, right? You see a butterfly, you see a rainbow, You see, massive tall trees, and just everything is amazing, and you just say, wow, God made this. That's the stage that my children are at, right? But then as you get older, the fascinating things of the world start to kind of wear off, the excitement of it. And instead you become a little more cynical. You see all the negative things in life. And even in that, you can still be redirected back to God, because you look around and you say, wow, the world is just a mess in so many ways. Thank goodness that there's some hope in this life. Rick says, what's the line between cynical and skeptical? Sometimes it's a hard line for me to balance. Maybe it's kind of how I articulated it there, the sentiment that you are going to, and I think you do this, Rick, by the way, I'm going to be nice to you, right? I'm going to be pleasant. I'm going to be cordial. I'll be respectful. But I'm not going to let you play me a fool, right? If you do me wrong, right, the first time, shame on you. Don't you're not going to get me again kind of mentality. I think, isn't that like a George W. Bush quote in some way? And so I think we are too cynical very often in society. Yeah, so, okay, he meant definitely, not defiantly. That helps make a little more sense. And Mary, you are so right in so many ways, but I'm going to have to disagree with you there. You are not old, Mary. You are not. I'm not going to hear any more about it. Now, we do have to talk about another issue here. Very sadly, there was a shooting in Austin, Texas. And the media are going to run for dear life from this. They're not going to talk about it. They will not talk about it. This will be buried by every liberal media you can think of. So here's a CBS right here, and I guarantee you this is not going to play very long at all on CNN or MS Now, right? Is that what it is? ABC News. Texas gunman wore property of Allah hoodie during attack, had photos of Iranian leaders at home, sources say. And so, very sadly, a gunman goes into a bar in early hours of the morning. I think it was Saturday morning in Austin, Texas, wounded 14. He killed 2. Very annoyingly, some people were reporting 3 people killed. That includes the killer, the murderer. I'm going to cover up his face just because we're not trying to give any sort of, recognition to these people. But yeah, property of Allah. It's a picture of the shooter there. Now, what we do know about the shooter, he was born in Senegal. Senegal is a Western African country, and then he was a naturalized U.S. citizen. He was naturalized back in, I think it was 2013, under the Obama administration. And this is very interesting to me. So, first of all, people are saying, well, see, he was a U.S. citizen. It's not just the illegals. That doesn't make the point that they think they're making. As a matter of fact, it proves all the more that we've got to stop immigration entirely. Just stop it. No more. Because the problem is, it's not only the illegal immigrants that pose a threat to our country, not just a threat in terms of violent crime, not just in trafficking and drugs, but also a threat to the very culture and values of our country. That's a threat, a very serious threat. Even the people who came here and were naturalized as citizens, they gained citizenship in the United States. We don't need any more of them. And I'm going to start to sound pretty radical here, but this is the next stage. We need to start deporting these people too. If you have been a naturalized citizen from some other country, now I may be willing to make some slight some exceptions, but this just shows how bad the rot is. So all the people who were arguing all the people are arguing that, well, see, this guy was a citizen, so, you just need to get off the back of, illegals because they're not the one. No, this shows just how bad it is. Even people are coming to the United States and becoming citizens. Now, was this guy a sleeper cell for Iran? Maybe I'm giving Iran too much credit, but I'm trying to not make this sound too dark, but if I was a terrorist, you think that you could prep a lot better. I think that you could organize a lot better. Why was there only one? Why was he only able to, at least at this point, as far as I know, claim only 2 lives? I think this is probably a lone gunman, but that doesn't take away from the point. The point is these people don't share American values. Now, I know there was also another shooting in Ohio. I don't know who was involved there. I'm not seeing as much reporting on it. Cincinnati mass shooting. And apparently there has not been any arrests there, so we don't know who is the perpetrator of that. I guess there's still a hunt for this shooter. Thankfully, all people are alive. Quite an amazing thing. But once again, this just shows that America is compromised by how many people we've let in, how many immigrants we've let in, not just illegal, but also legal. It's a very serious problem. So we're going to continue to track this. If something major happens this week, we may go live at night, kind of like we were doing with when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. As of right now, I'm just waiting to kind of see what happens here, how this plays out. Selfishly, and maybe I am being selfishly, I almost wish that Trump didn't do this, even if it was ultimately for the greater good, right, in theory, because of political reasons. I'm not very hopeful about the midterms in a lot of ways. I think that it's not shaping up well, folks. Maybe I'm being a pessimist there. Maybe you can be more encouraging. It's just, from what I'm seeing right now, maybe I'm wrong, but I think the Democrats have a lot of momentum. I think the Republicans are tripping up in some ways. It's going to be a long road ahead, all right? It's going to be a long road ahead. Rick says I misquoted George W. Bush. It's the original is fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I didn't know, was he the one that actually came up with that quote, or was that a saying before him and then he's the one that added fool me 3 times? Well, the point is you're not going to fool me again, something like that. I don't know. But okay, I'm going to take your word for it, Rick, because you are my elder, and you were there when it happened in real time. I probably was too, but I was too busy worried about, I don't know, playing with my Hot Wheels cars or something. So with that, I'm going to cut you all loose today here at Shields and Arrows. Let you go a little bit early. I do appreciate all of you who take the time to tune in. Once again, by no means am I telling you that I have some great political knowledge or insight. I'm trying to take hopefully a biblical worldview and apply it to political matters. Government's a very challenging thing. It's a very difficult thing. There's a number of different opinions on how government should be ran. The isolationist view. The isolationist view is maybe what's the word I'm looking for? It's an idealist view, but is it realist? It's really easy when you're not the one that's having to make the decisions to sit back and be critical, right? Very easy to do that. When you're the one that's actually making the decisions, not quite so easy. There's been a lot of people who have been political commentators who are really good at picking things apart, and then they try to run for office and they fall flat on their face because maybe they win or they get pressed with questions or what have you. It's not an easy thing, all right? This is not an easy job. We wish that politics were always just clean and simple, and there were never any problems in the world, and that there was nothing that we had to worry about. It's not always that easy. Maybe in time, Trump will be proven incorrect in his approach, and we'll look back on his second term as a flop. Maybe we'll look back and almost, there's some presidents that as time goes on, you grow a greater appreciation for. Like Richard Nixon. Finally, sadly, after his death, he's finally being acknowledged as quite a pretty good president. Maybe in the moment, we're going to be super critical of Trump on Iran, and many people, the conclusion of the experts, right, will be, oh, this was a terrible idea, it shouldn't have happened. And then maybe here in 10 or 15 years, when Iran is a thriving country that is allied with Saudi Arabia and Israel and America, and no longer sending a bunch of oil to China or what have you, we're going to say, man, somebody needs to, I guess Trump could be, he could be in his 90s, right? We need to take Trump back to the White House and give him an award or something because, give him all the Nobel Peace Prizes because he did a great thing. We're in the midst of it right now. Hindsight's 2020. We're just going to have to wait and see. And I think there's more people who are very quick to get the jab. There's some people quick to get the jab in 2020. But there are people who are trying to score points right now, both ways, and I'm just willing to tell you that I don't know. There's a lot that I don't know. But what I do know is that we have an amazing gospel, and the world is going to continue to be what the world is. There will be sin, there will be death, there will be pain. But Christ has come. He has died and rose again. We are reconciled by grace through faith. That's some good news. No matter what's going on in the world, no matter what war is being fought, there is good news to share with somebody. You can tell them one good thing. We can boast in our Lord and Savior, and so that's what I'm going to leave with you today. Once again, this has been Shields and Arrows. If you would like to come to our Bible conference, really would love to have you. If you're in Texas, just come on right up. Hit 75 and we'll have a great time. If you have any questions, please let me know, markdbaze@gmail.com. And just please be in prayer. Prayer for our ministry. I certainly will pray for you today. I'm going to pray for all of our listeners today. And so hold me accountable to be a better prayer. Thank you all so much. We will see you later.